Hey, it's Jack, no K, Jack in the Attic, and this is the third video of this type, so that means it's officially a series. I set out to make a video that was shawlettes, kerchiefs, bandanas, and mini scarves, but there are so many mini scarves, there are so many new shawlette patterns, they have to be separate videos. So today it's all mini scarves all the way through. I don't have the exact count in my mind at the moment, but there are at least 20 knit patterns and at least 20 crochet patterns. It's a super dark, dreary day, so good thing you don't need to see me. It's gonna be all patterns. The premise is you have a single skein of sock weight yarn that you picked up somewhere and you've been holding on to it forever because it's special. You know, you love it, you want to use it, but for what? And maybe you're tired of making socks. I have nothing against the Sophie scarf. Let's just start with that. Nothing against the Sophie scarf. I think it's great. I think people like it for a reason, but there is a much broader world of mini scarves going on that maybe you haven't seen. Or maybe you're like me and you're looking at mini scarves all the time. I don't know. I don't know your journey. So we have a ton of patterns. Let's get into it. Now I'm down here so that you can see the pictures and the pattern name. Wow. Okay, starting with the fun size scarf, which is a perfect stash buster project requiring only 77 yards of fingering weight yarn or 2 strands of lace weight held together. This is a true mini scarf, emphasis on mini, more of a chunky necklace than anything else, and I kind of think that rules. This mini scarf is highly customizable with instructions for 2 different sizes, 1 color or 2, and cabled or straight knit. Both sizes of this scarf can be knit with a single skein, and the 2 color version would be great for using up partial skeins. The Cresting diamond scarf is a mini scarf with an all-over lacy diamond pattern, knit end to end, which means it can be knit with 0 waste any amount of yarn. While still mini, this is large enough to provide some warmth on colder days, but not so large that you can only wear it in the winter. The Fern Valley scarf is a free pattern from Drops, knit sideways in garter stitch with a picot edge. This only calls for 230 yards of yarn, but it looks like it's long enough to wrap around twice and tie, though of course your mileage may vary. And by mileage I mean yardage, and by yardage I don't mean yardage, I mean scarf length. Your scarf length may vary. The Barista Scarf is a simple end-to-end garter stitch mini scarf with eyelets. It's simple, but the added detail of the eyelets makes it more interesting. The Ravelry listing also points out that the eyelet rows help to keep track of the shaping, which I appreciate. This scarf, as you can guess by the name, is knit in a beautiful leafy lace pattern with a decorative twisted stitch border. I think this falls into the category of elevated basic because it still keeps the classic mini scarf shape, but the lace adds a lot of detail. The Alex scarf is another in the classic mini scarf shape, you know, but knit in 2x2 rib. I love how the 2x2 rib looks, and it will also help the scarf keep its shape. The Ravelry description mentions this can be knit in any yarn at any gauge, depending on the desired look. The ELISE Scarf is available in English, but the entire description is in German, so everything I say about it is going to be from observation alone. I'm seeing stockinette with diagonal eyelet rows and a garter stitch border. There might also be an I-cord border outside the garter stitch section. There's technically a lot going on here, but it doesn't look overwhelming. I also love how it's styled in the pictures. The Leafkerchief is first of all delightfully named. It looks to be slightly pointed at the bottom center, like the tiniest shawl, but I think it still functionally belongs in the mini scarf category. Knit in an all-over lacy leaf pattern. I bet this would go crazy in a tonal or variegated green or in fall shades. That's just me. This highly textured mini scarf pattern is written for 2 sizes and both can be knit with a single skein. And I do mean both. You can knit both of them from the same single skein. Even 2 of the larger size. They take that little yardage. Are we doing friendship scarves yet? Let's get on that. This mini scarf is fully cabled, knit end to end, and can be shortened or lengthened to your desired dimensions or to suit your yardage. I love seeing cables utilized to create kind of geometric designs. I think that's very clever. This is where the knit scarves start to get a little less mini. The Pinecone Scarf uses eyelet chevrons and ribbing to create a design reminiscent of the scales on a pine cone. I see it, I get it. I also really like the unique shaping of this scarf, how it tapers at the end but isn't pointed. Here we're seeing more eyelet chevrons but used completely differently. This is also technically a very narrow shawl knit in an elongated diamond shape, but can definitely be worn as a scarf. This pattern includes both written and charted instructions. The Good Winds scarf, that's hard to say, has an all-over lace design that almost looks cabled and includes instructions for an optional I-cord edge. It calls for only 50 grams of fingering weight yarn, so it's another great stash buster. I'm doing a lot of completely unnecessary hand gestures completely off screen, if you were wondering. Gigi's scarf. This might be our longest scarf yet at 58 inches. This is, however, designed to be knit from a single 100-gram skein. This design uses only yarn overs and simple increases and decreases to achieve a light, lacy effect. The Seaside scarf is also a very elongated triangle shape, definitely still wearable as a scarf. This pattern uses stockinette, reverse stockinette, eyelets, and small cables to create a texture reminiscent of waves. The Jorah Scarf is an all-over cabled pattern, and the texture makes it look very squishy and cozy. It's knit from end to end, so you can use up basically whatever amount of yarn you have. It is written for light fingering, but it looks easy enough to adjust to your preferred gauge. The Été Chic or Summer Chic scarf is like a very elongated crescent shawl with an intricate looking lace border on one edge. It looks light and airy enough to wear through the warmer months, but I could also see it as a warm accessory if knit with heavier yarn. It's a free pattern, so I wouldn't be afraid to experiment a bit. Hobgoblin's Lob. First of all, incredible name. I just want to keep saying it. Hobgoblin's Lob. This is an elongated triangle scarf with eyelet rows and I-cord edging. The construction looks very interesting, and there's even a video tutorial available on YouTube. This scarf shawl combo looks so light and airy and seems to stretch a single skein of yarn impossibly far. The Ravelry description also notes this can be knit with any yarn weight for a different look. The pattern includes written and charted instructions as well as a video tutorial for the setup rows. The Drifting Dawn scarf will start to transition us from the pointed end shawl style mini scarves into the more traditional rectangle scarves. This is somewhere in between as a bias knit scarf with an eyelet pattern. The description mentions one of my favorite features of a knitting pattern, just enough detail to keep it interesting, but never complicated. The Strangling Vine lace scarf. This pattern specifies that it is the revised version, which I appreciate, especially for a free pattern. The open, airy lace of this piece means you can get a full-sized scarf out of a single skein. The diagonal lace scarf. There isn't a ton of detail in the description, but the name really says it all. This is a textured diagonal knit scarf with a lacy border. The shisha scarf had me checking the description multiple times to make sure it was in the right section, but this is definitely knit. The texture and thickness does remind me of crochet, but it has the drape of knit. This might be kind of the best of both worlds. The grid-like pattern looks like a lighter version of the waffle stitch, kind of, which I love. Okay, I try not to be biased, but every pattern compilation I make, I end up with a favorite. This is just so detailed. The description says it perfectly, so I'll read it directly. Cables serve as the framework for a suspended lace mesh traveling down the length of this innovative accessory. Combining simple, easily worked elements into something entirely new, the scarf is inspired by Tudor-style windows, in which many small panes of glass are held together by strips of metal. I couldn't explain it better than that. I love a very detailed description with an idea of the inspiration for the piece. I think it's great to include that. The Blue Blossoms Scarf. This lightweight lacy scarf is inspired by the look of a bed of flowers with an easy to memorize repeating pattern. This looks like it would be perfect for the warmer months, but could be adapted to heavier yarn for a warmer accessory. This rectangular scarf includes vertical, I guess it's only vertical sometimes, but like the part that hangs down, vertical, eyelet zigzags, and a seed stitch border. The description mentions using a looser spun alpaca yarn to decrease the risk of curling, but this is a free pattern, so feel free to experiment. The Old Shale Scarf is knit in a delicate wave pattern and can reach an impressive 80 inches long at the higher end of the yardage range. If you have a leftover skein and change, you could definitely hit that length, but this is still doable with a single skein, just slightly shorter. Okay, Dark Days. This pattern comes with instructions for 3 different sizes: scarf, stole, and shawl. While there are only pictures of one version, assuming it's the shawl based on the size, the scarf version is doable with a single skein. And come on, I had to include it. Look at this. So the scarf is a bit of a mystery pattern, but how could it not turn out super cool? If you hear random banging noises, so do I. I wish I knew what they were. They happen every day, every hour. I'm gonna break out. Okay, that felt like a lot of patterns, but we are only halfway done. Moving on to the crochet patterns, which are more similar in shape, so the order is going to be a little less orderly. You'll see what I mean. Starting with Scribbler's Lace. This is a sampler scarf with multiple different lace sections in between the increase and decrease section at each end. Changing stitch patterns so often means this scarf will never get boring. Remember the scarf I had to double check to make sure it was knit? I had to double check this one to make sure it's crochet. It is, and it's an impressive size for a mostly solid crochet piece. The eyelets add a nice interesting detail, and it looks like an easy pattern to memorize for stitching on the go. The Guava Scarf is an adorable little shell stitch piece that basically functions like an ascot. I could totally see making a collection of these in different colors out of all of your leftover yarns. You have a bunch of accessories that match your handmade pieces. Also, friendship scarves. This idea is for crocheters too. This is the classic mini scarf shape, pointed on each end, but in a cool textured pattern. The description says, the pattern makes use of familiar stitches but placed in somewhat unfamiliar ways. That's just enough detail that I'm really tempted to make it, because what does that mean? I want to know. The rustic lace scarf is exactly what it sounds like, delicate and airy, using only single, half double, and double crochet stitches. The pattern includes written and charted instructions and the option to make this a standard or infinity scarf. The wedgeling scarf is a long, skinny scarf with a chevron-like eyelet pattern throughout. This is another pattern that can be adapted to any yarn weight depending on your preference. This is another scarf that uses only simple stitches, chain, single, double, and treble, to create an intricate pattern. The airy texture also means you get some extra length out of a single skein project, with this piece measuring 72 inches long. The Arachne's Tears scarf is a long, narrow scarf with an almost floral eyelet pattern repeating throughout. This includes optional beading, but I wouldn't skip the beads because it looks really cool with them. The Violet Points scarf looks very lightweight and perfect for the warmer months. This is another free pattern where the gauge isn't critical, so you can absolutely work with other yarn weights. This does seem to be kind of a running theme with the crochet pieces. And side note, I do intend to make videos of this theme for other yarn weights eventually, so if you watch this long, that's a secret just for you. This is another scarf with optional beading. The Rose Rock Ripple scarf is crocheted in a standard chevron stitch and a mesh chevron stitch developed for this pattern. I love mesh and stripes together, stripes of mesh. I think stripes and mesh are best friends. This shawl scarf hybrid is named after the smallest recorded mountain, mirroring its small peak. This is crocheted from one end to the other, so you can use up exactly one skein of yarn with no waste. The lace edging is also crocheted as you go, so it's all made in one piece with only two ends to weave in. The Windy Prairie scarf is an all-over lacy mesh stitch and can be crocheted to any width and length. This pattern also includes a symbol chart for those who prefer that method. The bow scarf is another that would be very appropriate for warmer weather and incorporates the Solomon's knot stitch throughout for an extra airy look. This floral lace scarf is by the same designer as the bow scarf, but the design looks a bit warmer and could also be a nice transitional piece for spring and fall. I'm sure this could also be crocheted at a heavier gauge for colder weather as well. Hey, so I love this. I believe this is the basket weave stitch, hence the name of wicker scarf, and I just think it looks so cool. This pattern uses front and back post double crochet stitches to create this kind of dramatic but still subtle textured effect. I also just realized this is the same designer as the last two scarves, so consider me a fan. The Icarus scarf. This lacy textured scarf includes pointed ends and scalloped edges, crocheted from one end to the other to make the most of a single skein of special yarn. The teeny tiny Tiffany scarf is a beautiful lacy design, perfect to dress up an outfit without adding any bulk. This is another piece that I think is closer to a chunky necklace than a scarf, and I love that. This takes barely any yarn, but you could absolutely make this as long or as short as you want. And again, you could probably adapt it to different weights of yarn. The March Crochet Scarf. Directly from the Ravelry description, this scarf is long enough to wrap around your neck a couple of times for warmth on chilly days, but is also suitable for those warmer spring days when you don't want too much around your neck. This pattern is crocheted lengthways with an edging design added to each end afterward. The Dancing Ribbons Skinny Scarf. This is a quick to make narrow scarf that can be crocheted in any yarn weight, again, depending on your desired size and warmth level. This could be a perfect fall to winter scarf in a fluffy wool or a nice warm weather piece crocheted from a cotton or bamboo blend maybe. And I saved another favorite for last. I'm really into the combination of the pointed ends with the shell edging. It has an antique kind of vibe to it that I love. The version pictured is the narrow version and can be crocheted with a single skein, but you can also include more increases for a wider version if you have, again, a skein and change. That does happen to me. I will overestimate the amount of yarn and end up with a leftover skein and change. It's like, what am I gonna do with that? Now I have the answer. Mini scarves for everyone. That's the end of the list. We did it. 40 something mini scarves, knit and crochet patterns. Let me know how you feel about mini scarves. I feel like there was a tiny bit of like controversy. That feels too dramatic of a word for it, but with the Sophie scarf. I think anything that becomes extremely popular is going to have some level of pushback. But this is all to say there is a big wide world of tiny narrow scarves. And I kind of think there's something for everyone. So let me know your favorites from this list. Is there one that you love that I missed? Because I can't obviously include everything, but if there's one you really recommend, definitely let me know in the comments. Anyway, in your mini scarf making journeys, be sure to rest your hands and stretch and take breaks. But as always, go and live your best yarny life, and I will see you next time for more shawlettes. Bye.